If you've heard coaches, a male, older ones saying this, or maybe seen headlines floating around saying that metabolism doesn't actually slow down until age 60, you may have a similar reaction to that as I do. A little bit of confusion, maybe some eye roll, and maybe you're thinking, then why do I feel like I hit a wall at 42? Keep listening. Today, we're unpacking what one of the main studies really found, what they didn't measure, and what's actually happening inside the body during perimenopause.
Welcome to the Fitness Simplified podcast. I'm Brooke Davis, women's functional nutritionist and fitness specialist with Elysian Women's Wellness, and I'm here to simplify your fitness.
So diving right in, this statement, your metabolism doesn't actually slow down until 60. If this is true across the board, then why are so many women in their 40s, right? Even honestly, late 30s, telling me that they are eating clean, they are lifting weights, right? Nothing they're doing has changed. And yet they're not getting the results that they used to, or they're gaining weight out of nowhere that they are having a really hard time losing. It's, what they used to do isn't working anymore. Okay, here's the thing. The study that everyone's quoting isn't inherently wrong. I'm not here to say that, but I think it's definitely being applied in a much broader sense than it should be. Okay, this was a large population study. This was a large population-based study that measured total daily energy expenditure across men and women of all ages. And it found that on average, mind you, our metabolism doesn't drastically drop until later in life. This might sound somewhat reassuring, except that this study didn't actually look at anything related to hormones. Okay, it didn't ask whether those women were in perimenopause, postmenopause, on birth control. It didn't account for sleep quality disruption, thyroid health, stress that midlife women are under. So while this data is technically accurate, it's also pretty incomplete. And I like this topic because I think that science data in general is largely misunderstood. The way that studies are executed and the findings that they have are a lot of times oversimplified and applied in the wrong context. Because what I see every day, both, in my clients and from what I have heard thousands of women at this point tell me, is that while your basal metabolic rate, right, meaning the calories that you'd burn if you were just lying still all day, may not completely tank, your metabolic efficiency absolutely changes. And that shift is driven by hormones. So estrogen, progesterone, your thyroid hormones, cortisol, they're all talking to each other. They communicate. And during perimenopause, these interactions become muddled, if you will. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about what is really happening to your metabolism during this season of life, why this just really clickbaity, repeatable headline where the study outcome really only tells part of the story, and what you can actually do to support your body through this phase of life without going to extremes, right? Giving up all of your carbs, starving yourself, just pretending you need to try harder. And you can also tell those people who tell you that to go fly a kite, because your body is changing and it's adapting to these changes. And once you really understand how, you can support it in the way that it needs to get the best results. The study. So the study everyone's referencing came out in 2021 in the Journal of Science. And it really is a cool piece of research. It looked at over 6,000 people from birth to age 95, and it measured total daily energy expenditure, or TDE. And it used a method called double labeled water, which is essentially the gold standard for measuring how many calories your body burns in real life. To drink this special water, it has trace elements that lets researchers track how much carbon dioxide you breathe out over time. And from that, they can calculate your true daily energy burn. Then this is the part that's pretty cool about it, but also, again, this is one part that's actually really cool about it. They actually adjusted the numbers based on body size and lean muscle mass. So technically, they're comparing apples to apples across men and women of different builds. Catch is, this method, it really only measures how much energy your body is using, not how efficiently it's using it. It doesn't tell us what your hormones, thyroid, stress levels are doing to influence that number. And it really doesn't tell us how much energy these people had, how inflamed they were, whether they were losing or gaining fat, losing muscle, etc., which is where most midlife women are actually noticing these changes. When they put all this data together, what they found was that on average, energy expenditure rises through childhood, it peaks in your 20s, and then it holds fairly steady all the way up until around the age 60 when it does finally start to decline. So the big takeaway became, hey, your metabolism doesn't change in midlife, right? Menopause, perimenopause doesn't affect it. And of course, every media outlet, social media influencer, and of course, every media outlet, every social media influencer, they ran with that because maybe it sounds kind of empowering, but it's also an easy cop out for coaches who don't know how to navigate health and fat loss for women in midlife. They can just reference this study and tell them that they just don't want it bad enough, or they're not trying hard enough, or they're lying. But here's the nuance that really got lost in translation. These results are population averages. They're not hormone specific. They're not telling the story of what is happening inside a perimenopausal woman's body from one week to the next, right? They didn't track they didn't track menstrual cycles. They didn't separate pre, peri, postmenopausal women. They didn't look at hormones of any kind, thyroid conversion, cortisol rhythms, and they definitely didn't account for lifestyle factors like sleep loss, stress, nutrition habits. Okay. So yeah, if you zoom way out, you average everyone together, it looks like metabolism is stable until 60. But when you zoom in on a woman in her 40s who's sleeping 5 hours a night, juggling a career, kids, probably eating less because she's trying to quote unquote be good, while her hormone fluctuations are making her life completely miserable, her metabolism absolutely behaves differently. And that's the part that I want to unpack next, because even if your baseline calorie burn isn't technically crashing or decreasing, your metabolic efficiency, right? How your body converts food into energy, maintains muscle, manages stress. This absolutely shifts during perimenopause. So let's walk through what's actually changing, the specifics of this. There are 4 main components, and that is your sex hormones, your muscle tissue, your thyroid, and then your lifestyle recovery capacity. So the first hormone, sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone are fluctuating really unpredictably. Estrogen is a huge support to lean muscle maintenance. It plays a role in insulin sensitivity. It helps manage your blood sugar. And so when we're getting these big swings, which are higher or lower than usual, blood sugar regulation is inconsistent. This can lead to more cravings, decreased energy, inefficient use of fuel, essentially. Progesterone does have a mild thermogenic effect. So this means that it does slightly increase your resting calorie expenditure and your body temperature. But as progesterone declines, okay, your baseline metabolic output will decrease a little bit. Again, maybe not a dramatic drop, but it's noticeable over time, especially when you combine it with changes in sleep and stress. These hormone shifts also are going to impact your appetite. So they impact leptin and ghrelin, your satiation, your appetite and satiation hormones, water balance, sleep quality, which I mentioned. And all of these are directly correlated to your ability to stay in a steady calorie balance. So that is, again, has to be at least acknowledged as a factor when it comes to navigating fat loss in midlife. The next main factor is muscle tissue. So lean muscle is one of the primary drivers of resting metabolic rate. And as we know, it naturally begins to decline in your late 30s. When estrogen levels drop, that is when this process is rapidly accelerated unless you are actively strength training, you are consuming adequate protein, and you are consuming enough calories overall. Okay. Over time, so each pound of muscle loss does slightly reduce the number of calories that your body burns at rest. Again, it's not dramatic, but over time, this can lower your daily energy expenditure, even if your food or your workouts haven't changed, right? On top of that, your fatigue, your joint discomfort, recovery issues can lead to less consistent, less intense training, which further compounds muscle loss and would, yes, obviously play a role. Maybe you are burning the same amount, but you're not outputting the same amount, right? And, just to address this, because this is obviously somewhat controversial, the Big Metabolism study, it measured lean mass and it found that for the average adult between 20 and 60, energy expenditure, okay, it did adjust for size and body composition and it appears relatively stable. But again, this is a population average. So what it doesn't show you is what happens when those hormone levels become unstable, when your sleep is disrupted, when your recovery is compromised. So in these cases, even small declines in muscle mass, that metabolically active tissue, along with changes in thyroid conversion, higher stress, it can reduce how efficiently your metabolism is functioning. So again, even if output is the same things are not happening inside the body to optimize function. So while it may not necessarily show up as a huge drop in calories burned, your body, you're going to feel it. And that is a very real thing that women in midlife can attest to. The next one is thyroid hormones. These are another major regulator of your metabolism. So the thyroid produces mostly T4, which needs to be converted into T3. This is the active form that drives energy production in the cells. But when stress is high, estrogen levels are low, this conversion process can slow down. So that results in obviously lower active thyroid hormone levels. This can cause fatigue, slower recovery, reduced ability to maintain muscle. That is a huge component that's completely overlooked in the study. Lastly, a ton of women, almost everybody that comes to me, so many women, almost everyone that comes to work with us. Along with that, almost everyone I talk to is either eating too little or exercising too much in relation to what they eat, right? Both of which are increasing cortisol, signaling the body to conserve energy. This is known as adaptive thermogenesis. So essentially, your body responds to stress by temporarily slowing down the metabolism to protect itself. And lastly, like I mentioned, lifestyle plays a huge role, okay? Along with the hormonal fluctuations, we have greater demands, okay? We have career pressure, family responsibilities. This is a time when a lot of people are taking care of their parents and their kids, right? We have disrupted sleep because of those hormone fluctuations and stress. And then we have less time for consistent meals, proper recovery. These factors also elevate cortisol. They make blood sugar regulation less stable. Then when we have chronically high cortisol, when we have that chronically high cortisol, your body will prioritize, right, trying to create stability over calorie burning. So we have slower recovery, increased fat storage around the middle, overall metabolic inflexibility, okay, which means that your body is less efficient in switching between burning carbs and fat for fuel. So while the research might say that your metabolism hasn't slowed down, the combination of the hormonal variability, the stress, muscle loss, inconsistent recovery creates the same outcome, right? You feel like your metabolism isn't working the way that it used to. The good news is that these changes aren't permanent. And once you really understand what's driving this shift, you can adjust your nutrition, training, recovery to actually reestablish this metabolic efficiency. One of the most exciting things in this space that researchers are finally starting to look at, specifically in midlife women, instead of just lumping all adults together. Dr. Bill Campbell's team, for example, is currently studying how women over 40 respond to calorie deficits compared to younger women. This data isn't officially published yet. I'm in his research education group, so I have access to it. So we can't draw really hard conclusions, but their early observational findings are showing a very clear trend, and that is that women in perimenopause often see smaller changes in body composition from the same calorie deficit that would produce more noticeable changes in a woman in her 20s or early 30s. And this tells us something fairly important, right? It suggests that the metabolism during midlife becomes more adaptive, it becomes more protective. In other words, when your body senses stress, right, including dieting stress, it adjusts energy expenditure maybe more quickly to maintain stability. And this doesn't show up as a dramatic drop in metabolic rate on a chart necessarily, but you feel it when fat loss slows or stalls despite that consistent effort. And it's not because your body is malfunctioning. It's actually just more sensitive and it's responding to a more complex internal environment. You have more variables influencing your energy balance now, right? That again, shifting hormones, reduced sleep quality, potential changes in thyroid conversion. And so the takeaway is not that my metabolism is broken. It's not. It's responding basically as it should be given the inputs. And if the inputs shift, our nutrition, training, stress management, the output will improve. And this is ultimately why dieting the same way that you did at 25 doesn't work when you're 40. It's because the system has changed. Midlife really does require a more strategic approach to support the body rather than just kind of tear it down until it does what you want. So, now that we've covered what's changing, let's talk about what you can do to support a more responsive, efficient metabolism in midlife. And really, all of these things are going to support you for the rest of your life. Okay. We want to focus on restoring your energy balance, muscle preservation, stress resilience. These are the three key drivers of metabolic efficiency during perimenopause. So, number one, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but there are still so many women who come to me who are under eating and they are under eating protein. Instant under eating is one of the biggest triggers of metabolic adaptation. So many of the women that I talk to are eating clean, which unfortunately translates to they're not eating enough. You want to be prioritizing balanced meals. You want at least 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal to support muscle retention, appetite regulation. That is a huge one. And then including carbohydrates earlier in the day is going to help stabilize cortisol and blood sugar instead of just trying to cut them out, relying mostly on caffeine. And then your body weight times 11 or 12 is going to be kind of a general guideline as far as caloric intake that you can calculate really easily. Number two is strength training. I know it's not fun for a lot of people, but it is a non negotiable at this stage of life. 2 to 3 really, well structured sessions per week focused on compound movements, the major muscle groups, gradually increasing resistance. We also have science that tells us that you don't necessarily have to lift super heavy, right? You don't have to be working in those pure strength ranges in order to see benefits of muscle. And this is something that, based on more science that I've seen and read, have adapted my approach to coaching women in midlife. We used to think and, hear based on really actually powerful studies, and the studies that we've seen, it was a lift study and it was based on longevity markers. So there is still a lot of powerful evidence to lifting heavier at lower repetitions, higher loads. That being said, if you don't have the ability to do that, you're not comfortable with it, you're not advanced enough to do that, right? There is still so many benefits, and you can absolutely increase lean muscle tissue in the body by lifting at higher loads. So, whatever resistance training you're doing is going to be beneficial. Some are going to be more optimal, some are going to be more efficient. That being said, any resistance training you're doing is going to help preserve and build lean muscle mass. Okay. This is going to help preserve your resting metabolic rate. It's going to help improve your insulin sensitivity, your energy levels, and hormonal balance. And then we have to support stress reduction and thyroid function. So chronic stress, that poor sleep, these are direct impacts on your metabolic efficiencies. So prioritizing your sleep hygiene, right? Making sure you're getting to bed around the same time every night, dark room, prioritizing sleep before midnight. And then major micronutrients, that's a misnomer. And then some of the main micronutrients like magnesium, vitamin D, zinc, selenium, these are also going to support thyroid function, hormonal balance when your intake nutrient wise from food is not enough. And then recovery. This is huge. And it doesn't just have to be physical recovery, right? We need mental recovery. This is something that is so overlooked in today's society. Women are more stressed than ever. We have so much on our plate and in our brain. And so we have to prioritize this, not just recovery for our bodies, but our brain. So making sure that you are building in rest days, not, going to extreme with your calorie deficits and along with hard workouts, right? Poor sleep. You can't just push through that anymore. It doesn't work. So making sure that you have some nervous system regulation put in place in your daily habits. You instill that throughout the day, throughout the week, and making sure that you are prioritizing that. So the next time you are tempted to just cut your calories down to nothing, add more exercise, blame your age, right? Remember that the goal now cannot be just to push harder. You cannot just grind through this anymore. Okay. You have to fuel more intelligently. You have to train intentionally. You have to create a consistent environment where your brain and your body feel safe. You have enough space to recover from life and your training. And when you do that, fat loss becomes possible and your results become sustainable. So, to bring this full circle, your metabolism isn't just suddenly failing you when you hit 40. Okay, what's really happening is that you have an increase in the number of variables that your body has to manage, right? These hormone fluctuations, sleep disruptions, stress responses, changes in muscle tissue, they are all influencing how efficiently your body is using energy, how efficiently all of your systems are functioning. And like I said, the good news is that your metabolism is still adaptable. It just needs a new environment now, one that is going to support it, nourish it, okay, rather than just restrict it, push harder, okay? And because every woman's physiology really does respond differently throughout this transition, the most important thing you can do is to understand which systems in your body need support first. And that is exactly what our free hormone analysis does. It's a really quick assessment. It identifies your primary hormone imbalance pattern. It gives you a customized PDF report that includes your hormone archetype, what that archetype actually means for your metabolism, how it's impacting your systems, and then the top 3 to 4 things to focus on right now to start supporting your body and start to see progress. So really, it removes the guesswork. It gives you a really clear starting point without just going off of random macro calculators trying to throw in 20 new habits at once. So if you're really ready to understand why your body feels different, what will actually help, I will link the free hormone analysis in the show notes. Give yourself a few minutes to complete it and you'll get immediate clarity on how to support your metabolism through this chapter of life to start feeling like yourself again. I hope this was insightful. Hope this was helpful. The next time somebody tells you that your metabolism doesn't slow down until age 60, you can send them this podcast. I will see you in a couple weeks. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fitness Simplified podcast. We are stoked to have you join us on your journey to better health and fitness. If you have any questions, suggestions for future topics, or you just want to chat, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Brooke_Elysian and Facebook linked in the show notes or via our website, ElysianWomen'sWellness.com. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, we'd be thrilled if you could take a half second to leave us a 5-star rating and review so that you can help others find our show. If there was something you heard that was helpful or impactful, please screenshot, tag me, and share what it was so that we can bring you more. Plus, you'll be entered into our monthly Legion Recharge post-workout giveaway. New episodes drop every other Monday, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Thanks for listening.